Hi everyone, in this video I'll be introducing you to the midpoint formula, and we'll also find the midpoints of several line segments as practice and as an application of the formula. So here's the formula. The idea is that if I have two different points, x0, y0, x1, y1, then I can find the midpoint, which is the point that separates the line segment between these two, into equal parts. I find it by taking x0 plus x1 and dividing by 2. You'll notice this is just the average of the x coordinates, so it's basically saying middle of the x's gives us the new x coordinate. I get the y coordinate by finding the middle of the y's. So I take y0 plus y1 and divide it by 2. This actually gives me two different equations which we'll use later. So it says the x coordinate, xm, this is just the x coordinate of the midpoint, is given by taking the average of the x's, and the y coordinate is given by taking the average of the y's. And then I get the actual midpoint by just writing it as an x comma y, as an ordered pair. So how do we actually use this thing? Well, let's do an example so that we can see how to actually use this thing. So I want to find the midpoint of the line segment between 1, 1 and 9, 7. So I'm going to just leave my formula down here below so we can refer to it. So I can think of 1, 1 as my x0, comma y0. And I can think of 9, 7 as my x1, comma y1. And then I'm trying to find xm, comma ym, the coordinates of the midpoint. So what's the structure? I'm going to have an ordered pair. So I'll have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. I'm going to get the x's by adding the two other x's and dividing by 2, taking an average. I get the y coordinate by adding the y coordinates and dividing by 2. So my x0 is 1. My x1 is 9. My y0 is 1. And my y1 is 7. So now I can just work this out. 1 plus 9 is 10. Divide that by 2. 1 plus 7 is 8. Divide that by 2. So I get 5, 4 as my midpoint. So graphically, let's have a look at what we're doing. x0, y0 is 1, 1. So that's my first point. x1, y1 is 9, 7. So that's my second point. And I'm looking for the point that cuts this line segment in half. So we want it to be split into 2 equal parts. We'd expect that point to be right around here, and we calculated it exactly. We calculated that it occurs at 5, 4. So this is my midpoint, xm, ym. And if you look carefully, you notice that we're exactly halfway between the x values at our new x value. That splits those in half. And for our new y value, we're exactly halfway between the old y values. My picture's a little bit skewed. But that's the idea behind midpoint formula. Let's do one more trickier example where we use the formula in a different way. So if 1, 2 is an endpoint and 3, 5 is the midpoint, our goal in this example is to find the other endpoint. So let's first graph this to get a sense of what's going on. So this is my x0, y0. This is my midpoint, so this is my xm, ym. And now I can plot those. So 1, 2 is my x0, y0, 1, 2. my xm, ym is at 3, 5, 2, 3, up to 5. And so what I'm looking for is another point which is out in this direction, which makes this line segment the same as this one. So I'm trying to find the other endpoint, and I want to know its coordinates. So I can do this in two ways. First, I'll use the formula, and then we'll use the picture. So if we refer back to this formula, we have these two different equations. xm, the x coordinate, is equal to the average of our other x, of our two x coordinates that are at the endpoints. And ym is equal to the average of the y coordinates at the endpoints. In our last example, we were given the x coordinates and y coordinates at the endpoints. In this example, we're given xm, ym, x0, and y0, and we're asked to find x1 and y1. We can do it in each of these equations. So xm is 3, x0 is 1, and we need to find x1. So I just solve this equation for x1. So this says that 6, if I multiply both sides by 2, it says that 6 equals 1 plus x1, so 5 equals x1. So that gives me the x coordinate of the other endpoint. And similarly, I can rewrite this equation. ym is 5, that's the y coordinate of the midpoint. y0 is the y coordinate of my first endpoint, so that's 2. And I need to find y2. So again, I'll just solve this equation, multiply both sides by 2, which gives me 10 equals 2 plus y2. So 8 equals y2. So x1, or these are supposed to be, this is supposed to be y1. Sorry, we don't have a y2 in this example. x1, y1 is equal to 5, 8. And we'd sort of expect that if we go to 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's where we'd expect our other endpoint to be. And if we want to see this graphically, what you'll notice is that since the midpoint has to be halfway between the x values and halfway between the y's, I traveled 2 from this x value to the midpoint x value, which means to get to the other endpoint, I have to go 2 more. That will take me to 5. Then to get from this y value to the y value of the midpoint, I traveled 3, which means I have to go 3 more up to get to 8 to give me the y value of my new endpoint. So that's a graphical interpretation of this same problem. I hope that these examples give you a good sense of how the midpoint formula works and how to use it. Good luck with the homework. Let me know if you have any questions.